It is now 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and call our first meeting of the day, our Committee of Appointments, to order. We have a few items that we have to move forward, colleagues. So the first one is a resolution confirming Mayor Bliss's appointment of Salim Al-Shatel to the City Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you, colleagues. I did talk to Mayor Bliss. She was able to meet with Salim over the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing these over probably the last month so that Mayor Bliss can continue to meet with individuals. I think that we still will have one opening that Mayor Bliss will do an appointment to. I'd have to go back and confirm that, Daniel. But adding Salim will be a next good step. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No abstentions, no opposition. That carries. Thank you. The next is a resolution approving the City Commission's appointment of Patricia Gelderloos to the Income Tax Board of Review. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All right, colleagues. Is this a reappointment as well, Daniel, or this is a new appointment?
This is a new appointment recommended
Okay.
by staff.
All right. So, of course, colleagues, given the content of the Income Tax Review Board, we do rely on, as this is our appointment, we do rely on the staff's support in this so we can make sure that we can have that expertise on these boards.
So I was meeting with Pat about urban agriculture. So has staff, I encouraged her to fill out a PIF for urban ag, but I imagine she must have checked this as well. Has somebody had a conversation with her, I guess is my question.
Yes.
Okay, good. She's the first warder, so
Thank you, Commissioner.
we'll take her on the Income Tax Board of Review. She's also passionate about urban agriculture.
Great. Well, and I do think this is probably one of those boards where you could probably serve on this. It probably meets quarterly, if that.
I believe it's as needed.
Okay, I was going to say, I think
sure.
it's one of those boards where
Okay.
definitely could serve in one capacity and on another board.
Great.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? Hearing none, it carries. Thank you. Next is a resolution for the 2022 to 2023 Mayor's Youth Council appointments. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Support.
All right, and I see Ms. Shannon Harris approaching, Director of Our Community's Children. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners and City staff. So before you is a slate of names for approval to serve on the 2022-2023 Mayor's Youth Council. The first Mayor's Youth Council occurred in 1999 and consisted of 15 9th and 10th grade students. And over the years, we've expanded membership to include 11th and 12th grade students. And this year is our largest group of 55 scholars. All live in Grand Rapids. All are in high school. They fill out an application. They attended an interview. And most importantly, they've expressed interest in learning about the functions of city government and lending a voice to city officials on issues of importance to them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Harris?
No?
All right, well, this
Know
is.
a couple of these kids, so that's fun.
Perfect.
Now that my daughter's getting into middle school, I'll start to know some of these kids.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Harris, is this group larger than the groups you've had in the past?
This is the largest one. I think the one before this one was 40.
Great. I think some of us over the years, Shannon and others in her office have set up times so that these young people can also meet with us, depending on where they live with a different ward. And so I had a good time. They had some really good questions, some thought-provoking and sometimes difficult questions. And so just grateful that we are continuing to invest and congrats on the largest class, especially after the couple of years of the pandemic. So.
Absolutely.
All right, hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hearing no abstentions, no opposition, it carries, thank you. And then next, colleagues, we're all done with our work, with our resolutions for today. We do have the current board and vacancy list. I will say I don't have any additional updates from when we probably last met. I did, so unless you all do you have anything you want to share for any of the boards? Please let me know, but I did want to talk a bit about year-end appointments. I did want to talk and just make sure that we're all doing what you need us to do, Daniel, as we prepare for the year end. I also wanted to discuss, do we think we need a working meeting, an additional meeting at the end of November like we did last year, just to make sure, again, I know we're balancing multiple priorities. Right now, we're in the middle of, how many more days? 21 more days till the election? So 3 weeks. So our clerk's office is also working furiously on that work. This is also important, but we know that we're just doing some priority setting as we end the year. Excuse me. So colleagues, do you have any specific boards that you would like to review in terms of the openings?
Madam Chairman, what I would like to have happen, if possible, if we can just go over what the third ward needs in terms of people being on boards.
Probably right now, I think the ones that are board specific would be public safety, our civilian appeals board, and obviously, I would say our corridor improvement authorities, though sometimes those cover different wards, so it's not necessarily, a specific ward. So I think right now for public safety, if we could go to that one, I don't think we have any openings on that, so we should be up to date there. Public safety, it's probably not listed because I don't think we have any openings.
Yeah, I think we're up to date on public safety.
Yep. So this is, Commissioner Lanier did have somebody who was filling out the PIF. I don't know if I think they did, but they were still being vetted. So we can follow up on that one because essentially, I mean, of course, sad face, Commissioner Lanier will be done here in a couple of months. And so I know when I came on the committee or on the commission, usually that outgoing commissioner would try to work with their other colleague and whoever becomes the commissioner just to make sure, it being a one-year appointment, it's a little bit easier because we don't get too locked into things. But I know that her person was being vetted. So your person on here, Commissioner Moody, would need to get reappointed because it's a year. So those year-end appointments, I think I did actually get my notification in the email that says, hey, Melinda, you need to re-up. I'm like, okay, so I haven't done that yet, full disclosure, Daniel. But I know I have received that email, so I'm assuming all the other bodies have as well. And that was shortly after the last meeting, so thank you, Daniel.
Who was the person that's being vetted that she selected?
At this point, I could share that with you after, Commissioner. I typically like to not put it publicly just in case they have, like, if it's a tax issue or something like that. But happy to share that. So it would be your appointment for this one. If you and Commissioner Lanier, technically Southtown, those appointments would be a mayoral appointment, but certainly I know you all would work with the mayor. And then I think on CAB,
Yeah, my cab is coming up, but I've been working on that. I think I have a couple people
Okay.
that I'm talking to hopefully for the end of the year.
and so I don't know, we'd have to go and look. I know Mr. Davis sent a note about all the CAB appointments too in the year end. He highlighted that, so we could go back and double check that one. He did send an email. That was probably in September, August, or actually it was probably August that he sent that email. So I would say it would be those three, and then, like, we just did the one that was a city commission approval, but that's more all of us versus specifically third ward. Can you think of any other ones, Daniel, that would be specifically third ward that we'd want to highlight to Commissioner Moody?
I know there's some restructuring of the Vital Streets Oversight Commission, so
Oh, yes.
potentially that could change. Other than that, unfortunately, my computer has died at the most inopportune time, so I apologize, but I can definitely get that information to you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Yes, for the Vital Streets, following that meeting, I did speak with Mr. Berkman, our city engineer, and copied the mayor on that. So we have a plan. I think there's some things that still need to be worked out, but please know that will hopefully get cleaned up as well. We just did one for the tax increment, planning. I don't think planning is showing on this one right now.
Yeah, it says there's one more.
Is there? It's not yet, okay.
It could be under C's for City Planning Commission.
I just want to make sure about that. And then, yep,
There it
thank
is,
you.
look at that.
Okay, yay. I mean, yay, not good. So we'll have one that comes off of there. So we can see two on here. We've got,
What ward was
Two.
Salim from?
I believe First Ward.
Oh,
I believe First Ward. I have to go back and double check.
Okay.
So essentially, right now, we've got 3 second warders. We'll probably add a third first warder. So it'd probably be good to go back. Again, these are the mayor's appointments, but she'll probably look at a third warder, I'm guessing, in the next round. Also, I did want to highlight and look, I don't know if we did, I did see the Grand Valley Metro Council, some of the ones that we talked about the last meeting that we could remove.
Yeah, the
That one
Kent
got,
County
that one got removed, right?
moved, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, the advisory. This one is also one where we think we have enough people on as well, so.
Yeah.
Because this one isn't a city, this isn't a city one, this is
It's a regional board.
a regional board, yeah. So I believe Ms. Turkelson attends, I think actually Ms. Behrens attends, so that one can probably come off. If
Right.
we just, we'll do a double check there too. So thank you for getting those updated as well, Daniel.
So, local officers compensation commission, we need to talk to the mayor about that one too, Daniel. Because we have this one coming off and then that one just ended, ends September 30th. So we're gonna have the one that ends this next one. So I think we're gonna have 2 there now.
Okay.
And we're gonna be, they're gonna be meeting in the
March.
winter of 2023, which will be here unfortunately before we know it.
Right, it will be.
And when they end, they can only do one
Only
term.
do one term, but it's a
For the
7-year,
bylaws.
but it's a 7-year
7-year term.
term. So-
Okay.
Okay.
So we're looking for 2.
So
right
we'll
now.
get Commissioner Lanier to be on that next. Okay.
It's a standard
Kelly?
practice.
I will appoint her and she'll serve at the pleasure of the commission.
Commissioner Kelly's on that.
Yeah, I do think it is helpful,
Sure, they understand.
you know, and it's a 7-year appointment and it meets once every year, right?
Every 2.
At once every 2 years, so. You can tell her that, Kurt. No, just kidding. So, no, I mean, I appreciate all the work that is done. Again, I don't know if another reminder will come out, Daniel. I don't know what that response rate has been for people to complete the PIFs. If we are even able to know what that response rate looks like, because that's been now 2 weeks, will it get another push out to those to say, hey, do the PIF?
I can absolutely follow up with those folks that haven't responded as of yet, but we do have a very good response rate with individuals reapplying.
Okay, except for me. All right, so I'll do that today. And then probably just all of us, so then all of the commissioners would have to redo it, technically.
Historically, we haven't had commissioners complete
Okay.
the PIF, but
Okay.
if that's something you'd want to do, then that's,
Well, because I got it, is that for like the CIAs that we serve on?
it could be, our system automatically generates that email.
Oh, got it,
So if
okay.
you're a member and you have an email address attached in our system,
Okay,
then it pushes out that email.
okay. So do we need to complete it? Then I guess that should be my better question.
I guess as a best practice, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So we
Looking
can
at
do that.
legal. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's a good reminder, because, yeah, we all serve on a CIA, so, or some sort of TIFA board, so, all right. So lots there. Daniel, do you think it would be helpful to do another year-end sort of special meeting for this body to help assist, as maybe we're not quite a month out after the election?
I know the holiday time is a little tricky, but it couldn't hurt. I
Okay.
know everyone's a little busy during that time, but just so we're all on the same page, knowing what we need to do and how to move forward, then I think that would be best.
Well, also, our meetings are compressed in December, so they're at the front end of the month, so I think it's like the 2nd and the 9th. So, and then we don't have a meeting until after the first of the year, so once,
Okay,
so it's gonna be really quick, so the end of your appointment is actually like on the 9th of December, so, or something to that effect.
yeah. Okay, so let's look at adding an additional meeting, colleagues,
Yeah.
for November, so that we can hopefully get something for that last meeting of December. Because we'll have just one meeting in December, correct?
No,
if that's is correct, that's the 6th and the 13th.
Yeah.
The 6th and the 13th, because we'll do them together. Okay,
No, I'm just saying they're back to back.
got it.
So we will have a meeting on the 6th and we will have a meeting on the 13th.
Okay. So it'll probably behoove us to add in an additional meeting in November for this committee.
Yeah.
Okay?
And invite them, the mayor will usually invite her to that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, yeah, I just want to make sure we're not worried about anybody who has any, who is just, out there, but they're still serving on the board, but they haven't done the PIF, so, all right. It is now 8:16, so I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting so we can follow through the rest of our day. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
alternate. All right, good morning, everyone. We will call the Fiscal Committee meeting to order here at 8:30, and we'll begin our agenda with an item, a resolution accepting a grant award of $118,894 from Federal Emergency Management Agency and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security 2021 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for equipment with a local match of $11,889 for a total project cost of $130,783.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Chief Lehman, good morning, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of Fiscal. I won't restate the resolution, but this grant is an AFG, which allows us to buy equipment, and that equipment would be extrication equipment, along with some monitoring equipment and some saws.
All right, colleagues, is there questions for the chief?
Thanks, Chief.
All right, great work again, another grant. So those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 2 is a resolution accepting a grant award from the State of Michigan Bureau of Elections in the amount of $111,000 for 2022 election security expenses.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Clerk.
Good morning. This grant was put through the state from Help America Vote Act money from the federal government. They put out a grant for $1,500 per precinct. And so what we're going to be, they had a long list of things that can be covered on the grant, including we're replacing we replaced 2 wards of e-poll book laptop computers. So those will run securely on election day. Equipment that we're using to process absentee ballots and also for securing them, and then also for processing them using temporary staff. So those are the biggest parts of those purchases.
Very good. Colleagues, are there questions for the clerk?
Clerk, do you have enough help?
I got a lot of help, which is good. So
Will you be providing us an update at some point regarding the potential early processing?
yeah, Tuesday morning update, you'll get a little
All
bit
right,
later
very
today.
good. All right, any further questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Epic Productions of Phoenix LLC to develop and operate a digital recruiting platform service in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. D.C. Reifenberg, good morning, sir.
Good morning, members of the Fiscal Committee. I will not be as brief as Chief Lehman. This is a very important project for us. Not that his wasn't, but there's a lot of history that goes into this request. The police department is requesting authorization for the city to enter into a professional service agreement with Epic Productions for an amount not to exceed $200,000 to develop, design, and operate a digital recruiting platform service to augment the police department's current expanded recruiting efforts. The agreement includes content development, an initial 12-month of digital recruiting, and 2 years of hosting a recruiting website, while also providing technical support. At the end of the contract, and after evaluating its outcomes, the contract provides an option to continue digital recruitment services at a reduced rate. This continuation of services would be brought back before this commission for consideration. Police Department has updated its recruiting strategy and needs to develop and implement a digital recruiting platform. The department recommends accomplishing this by contracting with Epic Recruiting, who specializes in digital recruiting for law enforcement. Across the nation, and not isolated to law enforcement field, there's a recruiting and retention crisis. The GRPD's Community Engagement Unit and the city's Human Resource Department have been collaborating on how Grand Rapids can implement innovative, proactive solutions to this challenge by augmenting our current efforts. We've been talking quite a while about what the Community Engagement Unit has done. In this year alone, they've shared recruitment information at 100 different community events. They've held open houses and pop-up recruiting events all over the city. Recruiters have attended 47 academies, colleges, and universities. We continue with our partnerships with Kent County Technical Center, Junior ROTC, Grand Rapids Community College, and Grand Valley University, Grand Valley State University, where GRPD employees mentor and instruct interested students in criminal justice. We continue with our connections with local military branches throughout the state, focus on the grow your own progression of police explorers, youth police academies, up to including our police interns. Over time, the Explorers program has generated 6 police officers with another 7 in the police intern pipeline. Recent recruiting for police interns has been strong with 37 applicants and is expected to produce a diverse class of 8 new interns. Additionally, 8 former interns have been hired as police officers in the last 2 years. Homegrown online recruiting fairs did not produce desired results, but may be attempted again in a revised format. Continued exploration of a focus on recruiting by building partnerships with multicultural fraternities, colleges, universities, offices of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all initiatives that are responsive to our strategic plan and recruiting environment that is still being impacted by the pandemic. Access to out-of-state institutions is still limited, and job fairs are only now beginning to restart. So that's what we've done, and that's what we can do as a police department with the training and the expertise that we have. These efforts continue but need to be augmented to help ensure current and future recruiting success. Human Resources and the Communications team concur that retaining an agency that specializes in digital recruiting services will bring the Grand Rapids Police Department to the front line of recruiting, accelerating progress, and build candidate pools consistent with the department's new strategic plan. This investment will produce content, develop web solutions, and execute a digital recruitment campaign. Key analytics will be monitored and analyzed, particularly the impact on the size and diversity of our academy and certified candidate pools. A digital recruitment platform will provide an entirely new way to find and attract candidates. It would allow us to move forward with strategic digital push recruitment that can be tailored to a geographic area or affinity groups based on critical features and parameters like population centers of diverse individuals, colleges, and universities that attract a diverse population, persons that may be interested in lateral transfers, and communities that house historically black colleges and universities. The results can be measured with various online tools to track success and adapt flexibly to changing conditions. We spoke with agencies that have used Epic Recruiting, and they have reported that it was a game changer. Prior to using them, they had 20 to 25 applicants, and now they're seeing applicant pools of over 120. The recommended investment would evolve the recruiting strategy in a way that is consistent with the city's strategic plan and the strategic communications plan. It also assists in accelerating recruiting to enable the department to achieve authorized staffing by balancing ongoing recruiting with future retirements. The investment will enable us to connect with a new generation of candidates, seek a larger and more diverse candidate pool, and focus on students of key institutions. Today's job seekers rank social and professional networks as the most useful job search resource. Updating our digital platform will improve our recruiting and community engagement efforts. The timing of this investment would build on the development of the new police department strategic plan, which Chief Winstrom has characterized as a reset. Elements of the plan will be reflected in the output of the contract. The new platform can also play a vital role in how the community views the police department and how members of the department view themselves. It can also be beneficial in how we disseminate information about public safety, gather information about crime, and improve community relations. And I've brought Mr. Alex Johnson here from Epic Recruiting, if you have any questions of the company.
Very good. Colleagues, questions for Deputy Chief Reifenberg or the folks from Epic? Yeah, please.
Thanks, DC. You had mentioned, I know that would typically happen looking at other departments and things like that. Were they similarly sized departments? Because that is to go from 20 to 120, and then especially knowing what, kind of the runway that we need with the openings that we have. So were they similarly, because I think coming to Grand Rapids might be different than going to Atlanta. So just interested in what were some of the cities or even their experience in similarly sized Midwest cities.
Absolutely. Alex?
Okay, I was right.
Hey, hi, my name is Alex. I'm the Chief Creative Officer with Epic Recruiting. Thanks for having me and hearing us out here. We work with departments, county sheriffs of all sizes. We've actually worked with agencies that have 6 officers all the way to 1,800 officers, like For instance, the city of San Francisco, they're obviously facing their own crisis, but they are a large agency for a large city. We worked with corrections offices, sheriff's offices that have 36 officers. So we work with departments of all sizes. And when one of our approaches is to really get to know who you are and ultimately the people who are going to be successful here. So the size of the agency isn't necessarily as important as the culture and the makeup and the city and the landscape. So to answer your question, we've worked with departments of all sizes.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. In your digital recruiting, can you give me one of the methods that's been so successful for your group?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And I think why we've been successful is because this is the analogy that we use in some of our presentations is it's focused, it's targeted. So if you take a billboard and you put it on the freeway, you can get 1 million people to see it. And that's great. That's an impression. That's 1 million impressions. How many of those individuals who are passing that every day are interested in a job, first of all? Second of all, interested in a job in law enforcement? And then who are they to us? Are they the people that we want to seek out? With our targeted digital approach, we can actually go in, select certain demographics, educational backgrounds, whether they're in school, whether this is their second job, what their ethnicity is, what their gender is. We can go in and target those individuals. So I'd rather have 1,000 people who I know are interested and have expressed interest in this job than 1 million people and just cross my fingers. So we target military bases, universities, and so in our research and development phase that we go through the process with the police department in the city is who is the audience that we're looking to attract, and what's the kind of content that we're going to use to attract them, which is equally as important.
How about high school seniors?
Oh, absolutely. And here's the other thing is, Deputy Chief mentioned, going to these job fairs, going to these universities, going to high schools. Having those tools and having really focused messaging on how to relate to a, say, high school senior is really important. Like if we have, ex-athletes in the department that we can do a highlight or a feature on, and then we go into, high school gym and say, hey, you know what, those skills, those talents that you bring to the table, we have officers here that are really successful, and you can transition those skills really well. Maybe a university, college degree isn't for you, or hey, maybe take a look after you graduated with a criminal justice degree. Come take a look at us. So we provide them with the tools to go into those different audiences so that they're prepared to answer those questions.
Thank you.
What successes have you had recruiting, non-traditional candidates? I think that'll be something, myself and many of my colleagues will be interested in as we talk about how to, change the dynamics of a police department and figuring out how to bring in people who maybe have different skills than maybe we have traditionally been recruited for.
Yeah, and honestly, that's our main focus, right? It's not to say that we're not interested. I think we attract the low-hanging fruit. We can produce material that is going to attract, say, ex-military, and we're always going to be successful at that. What I want to do is go into the living rooms. I want to get in front. I want to be on computers of individuals who are maybe non-traditional. And so what we do is the first thing we ask is who is a non-traditional officer who's had success in this department, whether they're an ex-lawyer. We've done features on people who are come from the technology world, from Silicon Valley, and they're like, you know what? I was making a lot of money, but there was nothing at the heart of what I was doing. So I looked at law enforcement. Those are the types of stories that we try to bring to the surface because we want those individuals to see themselves in their shoes and be like, hey, you know what? I'm at the same place in my life. I could bring these skills and be really successful here and do something really important to give back to the community. So one of the things we try to identify is who are our non-traditional individuals that we can focus on so we can bring their stories and relate to those individuals we're looking to attract. And I think that's probably where we've had the most success is individuals who are like, you know what, I was a professional athlete and, I I retired at a pretty early age, obviously, like 27, 28. I'm looking to transition some of the same discipline, some of the same skills that made me successful in one field, try to bring them to another field and be successful there.
Very good. Colleagues, any additional questions?
No.
Thank you.
I would just say, it's good to see this. I know we obviously had the resolution for the COPS grant, which added that number, that was last year. The openings, we've heard the updates. I know we have a public safety update, so those are, I'm like, oh, do you do other recruiting? Because those are, I think you're right. Probably all of us who have other jobs, and certainly our city staff, we're constantly looking for people. We're dealing with, like you said, people who are deciding, if I'm going to work this much, I want it to be something that is going to be meaningful, people burning out, people making choices about childcare. So I'm very interested to see how this gets implemented here in Grand Rapids, and it can hopefully help us with the openings that we have. So thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you saying that because, you know, we do other industries as well. Obviously, law enforcement, because of the demand is so high that's become a niche, and it's probably 60-70% of what we do. But I mean, we're getting calls from EMTs, fire departments, some places who have not had the struggle of recruiting individuals for employment. So, you know, it's not exclusive to any particular industry. It's just law enforcement is probably the most critical, I'd say.
All right. With no further questions, we'll call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4, resolution authorizing the renewal of a contract with the National Research Center Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $32,000 for development, execution, and analysis of a community survey, the National Community Survey.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Mr. Green with his bold jacket this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So what this does is, as you know, we have committed to doing biannually a full survey of the community. We presented you the most recent results earlier this year. In our conversations with the company, we were able to secure through this renewal our next survey either in late 23 or early 24 at 2021 pricing. So this actually secures us financially, as well as provides us access to the platform in the interim to conduct any smaller localized surveys.
Very good. Colleagues, questions?
I'll just add, thank you. I was able to, even though we don't have our second ward meeting until next month, I was able to take some of this information to a second ward neighborhood meeting last week. And I think people were interested to hear this information. Of course, we'd love for it to be even further disaggregated, but I don't think that's possible. I think it's probably going to have to stay at the ward level. But I know last year our response rate was something like 13 or 15%. And do they have any ideas, or I'm sure we've thought about it, but do they have any additional supports to help us to increase that return rate in this investment? I know it's the first year, but.
Sure. Well, so working with the company, a couple of things. One, 13 to 15% is actually pretty good in terms of community-wide surveys, because the larger the net you cast, the more
we want to be
people-
better in Grand Rapids.
Exactly, and that's my point. Is so what they find is the more often you use the same tool, people, for instance, using this particular tool, many of them created an account to participate online. They now would get an automatic invite to future kind of surveys that we do. So it increases that muscle memory. More and more people sign up. More and more people become available or aware of surveys as they become available. So it requires a little less work on our end to garner at least awareness, if not participation. But yes, it's one of those things that they do. Obviously, there's two parts to it. Without getting into the technical, there's two parts. There's the statistically valid randomized sampling that they do, which that we have little or no control over because they just send that out to a randomized sample. But the other part is the open portion of the survey, and we can definitely do more to make sure that the open portion is more available and gets better response rates.
Thank you.
Very good. Colleagues, anything further?
Good.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, resolution authorizing a 1-year extension and amendment to a contract with Next Step of West Michigan for services associated with bus stops, parks, restrooms, and other related locations for an amount not to exceed $330,000.
So moved.
Support.
Good morning, Fiscal Committee. I'm Laura Claypool with the Parks Department. What you have before you is just an extension of a one-year contract with Next Step of West Michigan for both the Parks Department and Mobile GR. They're just providing critical services and support to both departments around cleanliness, trash removal, snow removal, disinfecting. They've continued to provide excellent service to the city. So this is just a one-year extension of the existing agreement.
Very good, colleagues. And any questions about this? All right, love this program. Thank you so much for extending it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, resolution authorizing the mayor to sign certain routine program documents for activities of the Community Development and Economic Development Departments for the 2023 calendar year.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Bohaj, good morning.
Good morning. As Commissioner O'Connor stated, these are routine documents that both of our departments may encounter throughout the year, and this just authorizes the mayor to go ahead and sign those for us.
All right. Any questions? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 7, resolution authorizing conditional approval of tax exemption and payment in lieu of taxes pilot for Avenue Apartments.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Good morning. Okay, so this item is actually a project through LinkUp, and in 2006, a 10-unit senior development was constructed. It had a pilot on it, a 15-year pilot that ran through 2007 through 2021. It's on the ad valorem at this time. When the pilot was originally approved, it was for the initial compliance period, and our ordinance has since changed that allows it to go through the extended time period, extended use period. And in the meantime, we also brought to you in January of 2021 a pilot request that you did approve conditionally for what was being referred to as Avenue Apartment 2 project, which does some renovation within the existing units as well as creates an additional 10 units. You did approve that. So it was intended that that would be in place. However, there's some delays in the close of their financing, so that's not able to come to fruition at this time. So what we're asking you to do is actually approve a pilot for the Avenue, the existing property for the compliance period. So that is an additional 14 years. However, keep in mind that as soon as the conditional pilot that was approved previously for the Avenue Apartment 2 phase, once that gets into effect, would supersede what you're doing today. So it's really anticipated that in 2024, the Avenue 2 pilot would come into fruition. Does that make sense? It's a little, I'm sure there's probably a better way to explain it, and I apologize if it's convoluted.
All right, colleagues, any questions for Ms. Bohaj about this? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8, resolution authorizing agreement with Mel Trotter Ministries for an amount not to exceed $200,000 for personal storage program operations.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Thank you. So this item, as you may recall, we have been doing a number of things over the years related to the COVID-19 pandemic and related to homelessness persons and vulnerable populations. Some of those efforts included the creation of the HOT team, as well as expanded winter shelter, and then most recently piloting a personal storage program. We are asking you to approve this funding to continue that storage program, which is actually is considered quite successful at this time. Just in the last 6 months, there's been 329 unique users of that program. We have reports from those that are, working more closely as outreach workers that have indicated that it does seem to be increasing the ease for individuals and the likelihood that they will actually go into shelter, as well as helping them to obtain employment. Also a reduction in requests for basic needs like blankets and coats and things because they actually have places to be stored. They're not being abandoned someplace or lost. So we're just asking to be able to have the resources to continue that. It is a request through the ARPA funds that was planned during the budget process. And then also just to let you know that the winter expansion for shelter is that there's not a need this year for that, so there's not an investment that we're asking you to make for that purpose. Mel Trotter's renovations are almost complete, and currently they have enough capacity that would absorb what we were using, the number of beds that we would have had at an expanded shelter, as well as the sort of the orientation of their new facility would allow even more capacity when they issued the Code Blue indications to the community when, if there's a extreme weather event. So they have the flexibility of space to actually have significantly more than we've had in the past for a Code Blue.
Very good. Colleagues, questions about this?
Very good, thank you.
Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bohach. Item 9 is a notice of intent to issue sanitary sewer system revenue bonds.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ms. Chapman, good morning.
Good morning. Before you is the resolution for the notice of intent to issue sanitary sewer system revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $25 million. The bond proceeds would be used for remediation of the Ash Lagoon out at the Water Resource Recovery Facility. We are currently looking at Clean Water Revolving Fund loans for these, which would offer some principal forgiveness through the Michigan Finance Authority. And just a reminder that publishing the notice of intent does not require us to issue these bonds.
Very good. Questions, colleagues? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. Item 10 is an ordinance amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance 2022-13 for fiscal year 2023, Amendment Number 4.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. We have 20 items on our budget ordinance this morning. I'll turn to our CFO, see if there's anything important that she thinks we should highlight in this very long list. Some of it's related to items we've already voted on and acknowledging those, but there might be a few other things.
Sure. And I stretched if you guys do want me to read them all. But
No, I don't think there's a need to read them all, but if there's anything in particular.
I guess one of the items of note, you'll see the first two is related to contract agreements for the APA and GREIU unions, section of the union that works for the library. Their contracts are approved by the Library Commission. However, we still are tasked with appropriating money on their behalf. So that I would just make note of those two.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, are there any questions about any of the other items? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll turn to item 11, our bid list resolution for October 18, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and support. Colleagues, questions on any of the bid list items this morning? All right, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 12 is our warrant report for September 21, 2022 through October 4, 2022, and our travel report for August of 2022. Mr. Comptroller.
Good morning, Commissioners. So for the period of time referenced, the city released a total of $17.6 million payments, which includes just under $4.8 million for our employee payroll expense and approximately $218,000 for income tax warrants. Quantity-wise, that equated to 520 income tax refunds being issued and 1,328 checks and payments being issued as well. And as always, the tables on the following pages contain the details of each of those payments that exceeded the amount of $20,000. Also this morning, we have for you our August fiscal year-to-date travel report. So this is a summary of travel expenditures for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. And the report is showing that so far, the city has spent $271,000 or approximately 11% of our total budget. And that concludes the reports this morning.
Very good. Colleagues, questions for the Comptroller?
None.
All right, hearing none, that report will be received and filed. Thank you, sir. And our final item on the agenda this morning is a treasurer's report for period September 22, 2022 through October 4, 2022. Mr. Treasurer, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. With our report today, we're focusing on a little bit of a different outlook. So we're showing you a graph on our first page that is where global inflation is. And these are the countries that have inflation rates that are 10% and higher. And so as you see that 2.1 billion people are affected by large inflation. Currently, the U.S. is at 8.2%. It was down from 8.3 in August. With the different numbers that are coming out right now, I can look at the bottom of our first page where it says that they're priced in a 69.4% likelihood of a 75 basis point rate hike. It's pretty much 100% now. We're expecting a 75 basis point hike in November, but also the trend is tracking up to more than 50% are saying that we're going to see another 75 basis points after that. So now let's take a look at our rate with 3 to 3.25%. Let's add another 1.5% to that. We're already seeing slowdown in the housing market. We're already seeing inventory starting to increase. I have Zillow on my computer, so I can see where housing prices are coming in, and I can see where people are starting to reduce their prices, and I'm starting to see people drop their prices because the dynamic has completely changed when you're talking about trying to get a mortgage at 7% versus getting a mortgage at 3%. And so, we're going to see that slow down drastically in terms of the housing market and inventory moving. So we're going to find this teetering balance. One of the interesting things is I attended a Econ Club meeting yesterday. It was fascinating. It was actually on manufacturing and resiliency in this type of economy and inflation. Really what they're focusing on is forward thinking, and forward thinking in terms of what we're doing here, where you're seeing these items brought forward like EPIC. It's forward thinking about how we look at our labor, how we look at the folks that we have staffing our jobs, how we bring people in, setting ourselves up for success when we face challenging times. And the same thing goes for our supplies. Even in the treasurer's office, I'm thinking about what's going to be the impact of paper, or what's going to be the impact of buying a new solution that eliminates paper, but I need to invest in connecting with my constituents in other ways. Even to the point where you have to think of office supplies can go crazy high and can jump overnight. Paper has almost doubled. In some industries, paper alone has gone up over 100%. And that's a struggle because a lot of that stuff, we have to understand, a lot of that stuff shifted to cardboard because of Amazon, because of all the different things that are getting shipped now instead of you picking it up at a big box store. That really constrained our supply and drove our costs up. But really, it's, the theme was working on operational excellence and putting these plans in place now to avoid future hardship. And so what we're doing is right, it's on track, it's what we need to be doing. As we see our departments come forward and they negotiate those contracts, they're working to make sure that they've got that supply chain is not going to be an issue. We're going to have it. They're looking at the timing of it. Because at the end of the day, the burning question is where's inflation going? And who knows? We don't know. There's too many global impacts right now. Even when we're talking about trying to put these massive spending bills in place and an Inflation Reduction Act, and you're not going to see instant results. It dropped 0.1% from August to September. Long term, we're thinking that this isn't going to take care of itself for another few years, and even after another few years, it's not going to be 2%, it's not going to be 0%. We're thinking it's going to be settling around 3 to 4%. So these are all crucial things that we have to think about, and we have to be forward thinkers. When I look at some of the other things that we're doing, we're placing our money out anywhere from 7 to 9 years. That's our forward thinking, is to look at where we can place some of that money out further that's going to overlap those hardships to the point where right now we're over 2% now in our portfolio, and we're buying investments that are over 4% in yield. And it's going to fill out that gap for us so that we're going to continue to see this trend go up for us. The challenge is approving going out to bond. Because now we're going to have, we've been very fortunate where we partnered with like the Michigan Strategic Fund and gotten bonds at 1.875%. And so the CFO and her team, when they do that work, they're looking for the best deal for the city, and that's operational excellence in terms of the finance department. And so I really believe that we're in a good spot going forward, but I think we need to continue to work on that operational excellence.
All right, colleagues, any questions for the treasurer? All right, hearing none, that report will be received and filed, and we will conclude this fiscal committee meeting at 9:04. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. There we go. There we go. We will call the Community Development Committee meeting to order at 9:15 a.m. on Tuesday, October 18th. We have a resolution approving an agreement with West Michigan Mountain Bike Alliance.
Support.
Moved and supported. Sorry.
Hey, all good. Good morning, Commissioners. This is an agenda item to enter into another formal agreement with the West Michigan Mountain Biking Alliance. We had one initially a number of years ago with the City of Grand Rapids, specifically around Bike Park in the southwest side of the city. This new lease, not a lease agreement, but this new agreement allows for a partnership in more of our park spaces where we are beginning to see and be asked by residents for more bike development in those park spaces. So we're excited to be entering into this agreement. There is no cost to the city. The Bike Alliance will be funding improvements that they will be making in the park space through grant funds and other donations, and helping us to maintain those spaces as well.
Great. Any questions or comments, colleagues? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Thank you. Our second resolution is authorizing execution of a restrictive covenant for the city-owned property located at 360 Hall Street.
So moved.
Support.
Southeast, if I may add, because there is a 360 southwest.
That's right.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners and staff. So this is a restricted covenant for a project at 360 Hall Street Southeast that was purchased by the city in 1999 for constructing the current library branch. And at that time, the city went through its due diligence and understood that there was a former convenience store there that had underground storage tanks and gasoline and oil. And so went through its environmental testing and due diligence and found that there was no issues. And so therefore it was safe to do the library project. Since that time, Eagle has taken the time to go back and kind of revisit those open files that they consider, and had an requested investigation. We complied, did so. The results of those investigations are safe, and there's no risk to the concerns of the site. This particular restricted covenant is just to put notice, an instrument on the chain of title, so if someone else would want to purchase that in the future or was redeveloped in something else, that note would be there, and they'd have restrictions on what they could do, specifically no underground water storage tanks, et cetera. But again, want to emphasize the operations of the library are safe, and there are no risk concerns relative to the city's operations.
Thank you for that. As I was reading the packet, I was wondering what was Cutie Pies, why would they have had that? They had ribs there, but I didn't remember. Maybe it was something before them.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, I think it was. It was kind of a whole history, and so going back in history, and so certainly just wanted to double check, and so we've complied, and everything's safe, and just making note of that in the future.
Thanks.
Or maybe it wasn't charcoal. Maybe it was another form of...
Well, you would know. You used to hang out. Right?
I did. Time.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Thank you. The next resolution is setting the date to consider rezoning at 16 Griggs Street Southwest.
So moved.
Support.
Good morning, Commission. So yes, this is about a 5,700 square foot property that houses a single-family home. It is vacant, previously used as a rental structure. The owner of the property does also own the adjacent property on South Division and operates a vehicle repair facility. So they are looking to rezone 16 Griggs from the low-density residential zone district to the traditional business area zone district. The reason they're doing that is to facilitate a future expansion of the vehicle repair facility. However, that expansion piece will actually be considered by the Planning Commission as a future special land use. And so currently, it is just a request to rezone. The property is large enough to support most uses within the traditional business area. It would obviously be a little bit challenging to redevelop independently. However, it can be done, which is part of the reason why the Planning Commission did support the rezoning request. They also did consider the sub-area planning work that has been done along Division Avenue and found that there really was some support in terms of inconsistencies with the zone districts in that specific location, and felt that rezoning was appropriate and recommended approval to you. So this is setting the date for ordinance consideration, and at this time, it is not setting a date for an additional public hearing. The Planning Commission did hold that, and clearly you can see how that went during the Planning Commission hearing, in that we received very little public input on this request.
Okay.
Any questions or comments, colleagues? There being none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Our fourth resolution is setting the date to consider a major amendment to the Gateway at Belknap, SDPRD, to facilitate construction of 14 residential units.
I'll move it.
Support.
Who has this one?
I do. So this is another rezoning request. It was a PRD that was approved several years ago by the city and was constructed per plans. However, the owner has reported some challenges with the utilization of the ground floor retail space that was required as part of the original approval. And so what they are looking to do is convert the western portion of the building. When you're looking at the facade facing Hastings, there are commercial uses in the east, trying to get my east and west right, in the east portion of the building that's bifurcated by the alley, if you will, that leads to the rear parking structure. And they've been having a lot of challenges filling the west ground floor with commercial tenants, and so they are looking to convert that space into ground floor residential with 14 additional residential units. They are not proposing any significant facade improvements, which was part of the discussion that we had with the Planning Commission of whether or not that was appropriate. So it will still look like it has a retail frontage with some changes. However, they are looking to install some landscaping that will provide some separation between the pedestrian realm, provide a little bit of privacy. However, I think with residential units right behind commercial storefront glazing systems, we can expect that there will be quite a bit of window treatments that will be installed. And I know that there are some, the minor changes that have been done is to swap out the clear glazing with the, the solid black. The name is escaping me. I'm sorry, but it will be solid black panels in lieu of a glazing system. So those are some of the minor changes, but ultimately they're looking to add ground floor residential units to this portion of the building.
Good.
So they're going to keep the commercial space in one of the buildings, convert in the other building?
That's
my
correct.
understanding? Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner. So when I did meet early with them, because of the way the ordinance is structured that says any increase in residential units requires a major amendment, meaning Planning Commission and City Commission. And so I had let them know that if there was a future desire, perhaps having the Planning Commission consider it holistically might be a good idea. They were not actually asking to convert the east building at this time, but their original application did include that. At the suggestion of myself, actually, Planning Commission determined that that really wasn't appropriate, that they really weren't prepared to render a determination on the, or allow for the conversion on the east portion of the building, because there are commercial tenants that are viable, and it does further align, more closely align with the Belknap Area Specific Plan. So it was something that we considered, but it doesn't sound like there's any significant heartburn with the recommendation only coming to you with the 14 units versus the entire ground floor of that development.
Okay. We approved this new ability for a building like this to put residential on the first floor. Is this one of the first conversions back to that since we passed that change?
Oh, goodness. I don't think it would be the first conversion. We've had a couple of new developments that have utilized that. I know that we are tracking that.
Okay.
I didn't come prepared to
that's
tell you
okay.
that today.
That's okay.
We did put a system in place to track it so that we could report out on the success or the usability of that change to the ordinance. This would be one of those conversions, but I don't think it's the first one.
I think that this is, when we passed that, this kind of a building is exactly what I had in my mind, where first floor retail probably didn't make a whole lot of sense to begin with in some of these cases. But I'm glad that we'll keep some of the commercial space, but I think this is great. No, I don't have any other questions, sorry.
No need to apologize. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our next agenda item, instead of calling the question on a resolution, this item will just be a discussion item. And so I will turn it over to Kate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are going to be withdrawing this from action for today. We will be bringing it back at a later date. There have been a number of questions raised about the project. There is additional private fundraising that is underway and some conversation around the future lease terms. And so we're going to solidify some of that information so that we can present the full picture to the commission. So we'll bring it back at a later date. But with your concurrence, I would like to invite our Parks Director up to just give a brief overview of the intended improvements and the use of the building and how we think it would operate within Veterans Memorial Park. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deputy City Manager, Commissioners. We will be pleased, the department is honored to be working on this project alongside of a well-known and respected nonprofit organization, Has Heart. This project was first conceived back in 2013 and approved in master plan form by city commissioners at that same time. That master plan called for the renovation of this building space in Veterans Park, specifically to be a coffee house or a cafe space within the park to ensure that we are providing visitors and residents some activation in this park that very much needs that type of activation. In 2017, city commissioners approved a project renovation, the work that we now see up in Veterans Park, which included new pavers, new paving, and new monuments erected in memorial of our veterans that have served our country. The one piece that did not move forward at that time because of costs and funds that we had in place at that time was the renovation of this important building space and that cafe space. And so when we bring this project to you for consideration, that will be that specific project component that we would like to bring forward at that time. The renovation of this very historic building that very much needs work regardless of what we do in this space. There are some responsibilities that we have as a city organization to care for this facility and to ensure that we're upgrading it in a way that it is cared for well into the future. At the time at which we are doing that, we would like to do so in response to the master plan, where we are incorporating some elements of this cafe and anticipate doing so in partnership with Has Heart, an organization that has raised significant funds for this project already. So we look forward to bringing that back to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time if you have any.
Any questions or comments? That looks like a comment.
Yeah, I mean, I have several questions, but so I guess a couple of questions. They're fundraising. They've raised $240,000 or so. You know, and I know that they've got a request into the community foundation. In the original resolution, we were going to bring a certain amount of money to the table. If they're more successful than anticipated with their fundraising, does our share go down then at that point, or are we going to commit to that regardless of that?
If they are more successful, if they are successful in raising the funds that would close the gap, our share goes down.
Okay.
If they are more successful, our share goes down.
Okay. And then in terms of like when we use money from that capital improvement fund for other projects, does that ever get paid back, or is that usually like we pay it out and forget about it? Because this is a situation where there is a return to be able to pay those funds back, and so I'm just wondering about that logistics.
We can certainly have some conversation and tee that up as part of what we bring back, how we would deal with any lease revenue that comes through as part of.
Yeah, like where does that go when it comes in?
The complete picture, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
great. I think that's it for now.
No, he pretty much answered the question. I just want to add that from where I sit, I believe that it would not be too much to ask for us to have some skin in the game. But the goal ultimately would be to have the organization do all they can to raise the dollars. And I can appreciate the decision that was made years ago to be supportive of this type of restoration. But again, I think we'd be probably the better stewards if we were to come alongside and assist in this instead of more or less leading the way. So thank you for the additional information, though. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
I guess I did have one more question.
Sure.
So, well, first of all, I appreciate, and again, we're not talking about this particular resolution, but I do appreciate their 37% commitment to MLB. That's significant. Is there a way, there's also going to be the renovation of the bathroom in the building. Is there a way that, as a part of our lease agreement, that we can ensure that that's a public bathroom that anybody could use? Because I know that's a tremendous need downtown.
Yeah, great question, Commissioner Repart, and that is the intent, that this restroom facility would be accessible to the general public on a daily basis.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Kate, you have anything to close out, or?
Yes, sorry, thank you.
Okay, we will move on. Thank you, David. We'll move on to the next item, excuse me, which is number 6, the resolution awarding a contract with EV Construction Co.
Support it.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the Water Department is... Oh. Is it coming through okay? I'm pretty sure I said Commissioners, but good morning, Commissioners. So the Water Department is seeking to replace windows in the filter gallery out at the lake plant. Currently, they're single pane and have exceeded their useful life, so looking for more energy efficient, multi-pane insulated construction. And that's what these bids were for. We received 2 bids on October 4th. EV submitted that low bid amount of $391,794, which was under the engineer's estimate of $450,000. So asking for your approval of this award to EV with a total not to exceed amount authorized at $517,435, with that amount coming from the water fund.
Okay.
Questions or comments?
Must mean that the price of windows are getting back to where they once were.
Or we've appropriately gotten more conservative with our estimates.
Yeah, right.
But probably somewhere in between.
Both,
Yeah.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our 7th resolution is approving an increase of $276,800 for water main on the relocation of the East Side Trunk Sewer Project.
So moved.
Support.
So I know this is the 3rd meeting in a row where you've heard about this project, but I did mention at your last meeting that we were in the process of actively working on another solution for the private property on the west side of Market at Weston to deliver water service and fire protection for future redevelopment of that property. And we have finalized a plan for that. The work would include upsizing a portion of the main in Market from 8-inch to 12-inch, 150 feet of new main that would cut across Market from Weston, new T's and valves, making the property ready as far as water service is concerned. That cost is $240,600 and would be funded entirely by the private properties on the west side there. Per the MOU that we have in place for the trunk sewer, the funding would come from their share, so no funding from the city or the CAA, which is also a party to that MOU. And of course, completing this work now prevents us from reopening the newly constructed street, should it be done later instead. There is also an additional charge tied to this item related to traffic control and site maintenance efforts, since we have extended the schedule. That was prorated based on number of days attributable to the work done for the private parties, as well as the work being done for the water system related to the lining of that 700 feet of water main that I brought to you at your last meeting. So that amount is $36,200 to the water system fund, and so that would be a city share. But again, that's for our prorated portion of the extension. We are intending to get the roadway paved mid-November and open to traffic by the end of November, early December. Obviously, there may need to be some restoration work that we come back to complete in the spring, but they're working long hours and working Saturdays to ensure that we meet that target. So request your approval of this increase of $276,800 to this contract.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our 8th resolution, approving an increase of $500,000 for as-needed concrete and facade improvements.
So moved.
Support.
So this contract was initially approved in June of 2020. We have 3 contractors under the term agreement to provide repairs and improvements at parking ramps and facilities that the city owns or operates. We extended the contract through June of next year with an authorized amount of $900,000. Now we'd like to utilize this contract, though, for a particularly time-sensitive project involving pool slide railings at MLK and Briggs Parks. And even though it feels like we just closed the pools, we will be opening them in the spring, and this will make us ready. The state did an inspection and noted that if the railings going up to the top of those slides were not replaced, then they would not be approved to open at that time. And there's materials that need to be ordered and timelines involved. And so we received a price from Mark I Restoration in the amount of $144,142 that will perform these repairs, as well as some miscellaneous other structural repairs that are needed to have things fully ready, then inspected and approved to open in 2023. So we'd like to utilize this agreement, but need an increase to cover that amount. So we're seeking an increase of $500,000 to cover this, as well as any other anticipated uses of this contract between now and the end of June.
Any other questions? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our 9th resolution is approving an increase of $400,000 for as-needed roof asset management.
So moved.
Support. This agreement originated in 2018, and we have 3 contractors on board that provide repairs, preventative maintenance, infrared scans, and other small replacement projects on our over 220 city-owned facilities. Over the course of 4 extensions of this contract, we have not sought an increase in authorization, but now with rising material costs and the number of repairs and inspections we have done, it is necessary to do so at this time. So asking for your approval of this $400,000 increase, taking us to $1,375,000 on this authorization.
And when is it up for renewal or to go out for a bid again?
So it's good through 2023, and at that time, we will rebid this because we'll be out of renewal extensions.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our 10th resolution is determining the necessity of the improvement of Crescent Street Alley from Grand Avenue to Eastern Avenue.
So moved.
Support. A public hearing of necessity was held at your August 23rd meeting. That was the commission night out in the First Ward to consider improving this alley south of Crescent between Grand and Eastern. The 27 affected property owners have been mailed notice and were made aware of that hearing. Also received vote cards to voice their support or lack of support. To date, 14 of the 27 responded in favor, which is of course just over half, and that also represents just over half, 50.2% of the front footage amount. So since we've reached a majority in favor, bringing this resolution to you today, which provides for determining the necessity of the improvement and essentially approving the special assessment district. The city's portion of the $138,575 project is just over $9,400. The balance would then be spread across the 27 owners that have foot frontage of the alley. The average to the owner is approximately $4,800 and can be paid either as a lump sum or over a period of 10 years. So if approved, we'll proceed with design, bidding, and then anticipate construction of this in the 2024 season.
Thank you. Do you mind sharing how many were in opposition of the project? And then I think after the public hearing the last time, there were going to be additional meetings. There was some confusion by residents. I think there was going to be an additional meeting, and the outcome of that would be helpful to hear too.
So of the 27 vote cards that were sent out, as I mentioned, 14 were in favor, 7 said no. So 28% said no, and then 6 have yet to reply. So at the public hearing, 3 spoke, 2 in favor of, 1 in opposition. I did speak with those residents after the meeting and addressed any concerns or questions that they had, but there is not a follow-up meeting that's set or a part of this process.
Any other questions or comments? That says question or comment.
Well, I've been thinking about this process. The street next to me just ended up adding speed bumps. So it's a similar kind of process where you got to go around, you got to talk to your neighbors. Not all your neighbors are going to like it. Some of them are going to, and then it does kind of put neighbors in tricky positions with each other, as well as us in tricky positions to try to say, who are we going to do? So the process itself, I think it's great. I mean, they stepped forward, they asked for this. Right. I think we need to remind ourselves of that. But it does make me wonder, these type of processes, if you don't hit a certain percentage, then you basically have potentially 48% of the houses affected who are not thrilled with the change and still have to pay $4,800. So I'm just wondering about the process. It just kind of feels like it's missing some sort of unifying element to it.
Yeah, I wonder if, I would see those numbers differently. I would say 28%.
Sure.
Those
yeah.
who aren't voting or speaking are probably indifferent. But
right.
I do think that the coming together of neighbors is important in this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's room for maybe making it a supermajority or something like that, which then allows for there to be more dialogue and conversations about, especially the assessments. I think speed bumps, they don't have to contribute to that, do they, financially?
No, those speed bumps are not specially assessed. Those are funded
Yeah.
through traffic safety.
It's only funded.
But you have to still get neighbor.
Yeah, you do have to get the
buy-in, right?
petition signed.
We do. We go through that process, but we are actually, and we can talk about this at a future date, when we made the changes, which is with the Vital Streets program, we're actually trying to go to a more proactive approach to basically look at a network of streets, because what we found is after many years of solving one street at a time, we're creating and playing kind of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
So you solve a problem on one street and then it moves over to the next street.
That's right.
And so there's sort of a history behind that. So we now have $150,000 a year. So now we're trying to be more, look at networks of different roadways, so like 3 to 5 in a neighborhood context. And then part of that is also looking at maybe changing some of the requirements that we put on neighbors. And this is similar to what we did when we changed the residential parking permit program. It's just very onerous to go around and do petitions, get everything from your neighbors, and then go through the voting process.
Yeah. And I would just recommend, as you're doing that proactive approach, try to do it outside of construction nearby, because construction nearby sends cars in different locations and places, which then skews the numbers about how much traffic and how fast they're going, of normal traffic. But yeah, I think to your point, I think you're right that maybe there's room to have more conversations, but because the assessment, that's different. That's if you're
It's
coming out of
different.
pocket.
Yeah, and that's where I guess maybe my only other question is, I appreciate the option to spread it out over 10 years.
Yeah.
Always want to, when I think about my own budget, if all of a sudden I had to figure out how to come up with $4,800 more bucks on top of the, inflation right now, every family's spending an average of about that much every month. Just wondering if there's wondering if there's a consideration, if there is a low-income family on that street, can they spread it out over further? Like, are there any recourse for that? Is it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
10 years seems reasonable. I don't want to pretend like it doesn't seem reasonable, but if it was a higher number than $4,800, then 10 years might not feel reasonable.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. And I mean, 10 years is what the policy stipulates, so it would require a change to that. But that is a reasonable amount of time, but I suppose that depends on your perspective and where you're at on the yes versus no side of the fence.
True.
I think that's all my wonderings.
Okay. Any other wonderings or questions or comments?
No, I can
on this
just,
side?
I can appreciate my colleagues' mentioning of that. I think that in times like this is where I lean on the expertise of staff with regards to the actual request itself. I mean, if it's necessary, then they're making the request, they're making their case. But if staff were to say, well, then I think we're in a position then to maybe obviously push back and not have it take place, right? But if staff is more or less supporting this, then it makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, the practical matter is we cannot improve all of the city's alleys.
Right.
And so it really is, if residents or business owners, property owners are coming to us and saying, this is what we want, well, then this is the process that we have to deliver that. And I do remind people that the vote cards are an indication for you as commission to, understand where they're at. It doesn't necessarily require a 50% vote for you to approve it. There could be far less than that, but there may be a good, compelling reason to do so. But it is, when we do have a majority, we do certainly bring it forward, reflecting that and recommending that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for all that.
Thank you. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It carries. Our 11th resolution is approving a construction agreement in the amount of $120,949.50, accepting a warranty deed in public utilities and sidewalk easements.
I'll move it.
Support.
So this is the private development agreement for Dwelling Place, 42 single-family homes to be developed north of Winchell Street between Union and Martin within the city. The construction agreement will cover the improvements for the sanitary sewer, water main, and other public improvements associated with the project. So this resolution before you includes acceptance of the necessary utility easements associated with that construction agreement and acceptance of the warranty deed that will be dedicated as public right-of-way for the project.
Great.
Any questions or comments? The project is taking shape.
Moving forward.
That's right. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Our last resolution is approving a release of easement at 2090 28th Street for nominal consideration of $1.
So moved.
Support.
So the property is located at the southeast corner of 28th Street in Englewood and is in the process of being redeveloped as a gas station. In 1969, the city accepted an easement that is no longer necessary. We've reviewed this with utility departments. There's no objections to its release, and the property owner has asked for this to occur. So asking for your approval of the release for nominal consideration of $1.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for being here this morning. We will close our community development meeting at 9:48 a.m.
our commission meeting here on this cold and brisk fall morning. Happy October, everyone. We're going to get started today, Commissioners, with a proclamation, and then we have a number of action items, and then we have two important briefings that we'll have right after. We have one briefing on the Rapid, so appreciate members of the Rapid being here today, including the new, I don't know if I can call you new anymore, Deb, including the President and CEO of the Rapid, Deb Prado, and then we'll have an update from Mr. Matthews on the participatory, that is always a mouthful, participatory budgeting voting results. So I know we're all excited to hear that and to talk about next steps. So I'm going to get started. I think I'm going to come up here and I'm going to ask Shannon Harris to join me so I can give her this proclamation. So this is a proclamation that we do every year, highlighting Lights On After School. So I'm going to read this, and then I'll hand it over to Shannon to say a few words, and then we'll get started with our agenda today. So this proclamation is specific to celebrating this important day and bringing attention to it. Because whereas research studies show that children who regularly attend after-school programs improve their self-confidence, school performance, and school attendance. And whereas after-school programs are a significant crime prevention strategy for youth, offering positive and engaging activities. And whereas after-school programs are a critical resource to families and inspire career and skill development programming that support learning. Whereas these programs require community investment from all sectors to ensure quality after-school care for children. Whereas the City of Grand Rapids is committed to supporting quality after-school programs for children and youth where they can learn, thrive, and most importantly, be safe. Therefore, I, Rosalind Bliss, Mayor of the City of Grand Rapids, do hereby proclaim October 20th, 2022 as Lights On After School Day in Grand Rapids, to shine a light on what after-school programs offer and urge all of our citizens to support this national day that shines a light on the importance of after-school programs and provides young people with opportunities to develop into successful and healthy adults. So with that, I'll turn this over to Shannon to say a few words about the important work that we do in partnership with a number of organizations in our community to make sure that there's safe after-school options for children and youth.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Good morning, City Commissioners, City Manager, and City staff and audience. So Lights On After School was created by the After School Alliance, which is a nationwide celebration that began in October of 2000. And so thank you all for lifting up not only the importance of after-school programs in Grand Rapids, but out-of-school time programs, which includes before school, after school, and in the summer. Young people enrolled in these programs realize a talent, they learn new skills, they have fun, and they discover their future sense of self. Our community's children manages an out-of-school time system building effort called the Expanded Learning Opportunities Network. And our purpose is to promote and align community efforts in the provision of quality out-of-school time programs through public education and advocacy, professional development and training, a data-driven system on shared outcomes, and continuous collaboration. And this collaboration includes working with the GRPS's Office of Extended Learning. And I want to bring up Rosie Holmes. She is the director of the out-of-school time program at GRPS called Loop. And Loop has a special event for Lights On After School occurring this Thursday at Riverside Middle. Followed by Rosie will be a short video of youth testimonies. And so Rosie, please tell us about the program on Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Good morning. Good morning. We're proud to join communities across America in celebrating Lights On After School. There is a lot to celebrate. After-school programs keep our Loop scholars safe, inspire them to learn and grow, and give our parents a peace of mind. Why are out-of-school time programs important? First of all, without these programs, parents who do not have flexible work schedules are left with few or expensive child care expenses. Out-of-school program provides our youth with time and support to complete their homework, with engaging learning experiences and enrichment and academic tutoring sessions. Out-of-school time programs provide measurable benefits to youth and families on outcomes that are directly related to out-of-school time standards. Academic out-of-school time program sessions can improve academic outcomes in reading and math, and they're also connected to our curriculum standards that we teach in our school day programs. Each Grand Rapids Public Schools Loop Pro site will be celebrating Lights On After School, but we will be hosting our main program at Riverside Middle School from 3 to 5 o'clock p.m. So we're inviting you to come out and celebrate with us. Our scholars have provided activities across the district, and they will be showing how important and what we do in our after-school program. So please come out and join us and keep the lights on.
Video. All right, we're going to do a quick picture with the proclamation, and then we'll see the video. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a short video. And I don't know where the, oh, thank you. This is a video testimony of young people that are participating in the Loop After School program.
What I like about Loop is that I don't have to go home after school. I can just go to Loop, except on Fridays.
Well, first thing I like about Loop, well, the snacks, of course, the snacks. That's the first thing, the snacks. And then, the Chromebooks, the Legos, and then more snacks, and then free stuff.
I like about Loop because we get to go to the gym and play basketball and those little tennis rackets and stuff. And we get to eat snacks, we get to paint rocks.
It's fun, snacks, and games.
I like about Loop because we get to play games, and we get to do activities and all of that.
Well, you can do your homework here. If you can't finish it in class, or if you got some other stuff to do, but then you can do a lot of work, and tons of people come down here.
If I need extra help on like math, we have the academics things, but worksheets, and if I need help, I can do them. If I don't understand like a certain math thing that's going on in my class, I can do the academic worksheets.
Because we get to learn new things and build projects and stuff.
Fun academics.
Because Loop is the great idea to live on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. We really appreciate our partnership with GRPS and the EL and the network, I should say, and all of our partners in our community. So thank you. All right, Commissioners, that will take us to our next item. This is a resolution approving a brownfield plan amendment for the $24 million project, Lofts on Grove redevelopment project located at 1329 and 1359 Plainfield Avenue and 1367 Grove Place Northeast. Can I get a motion?
I'll move it.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. We have Mr. Gracia here to tell us about this. We did have a public hearing related to this item at our last commission meeting. Mr. Gracia?
Yes, good morning, Mayor, Commission, staff. So this project, again, is taking for the Lofts on Grove project, and again, it's the brownfield reimbursement for eligible activities, including their environmental assessment, demolition, lead and asbestos abatement, site preparation, and infrastructure improvements. These reimbursements will occur over a 13-year period. Again, the development is about 110 market rate units. Also, the project, in terms of our inclusion plan, has committed to an amount of 14.2%, or just over $2.6 million of the project.
Great, thanks. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, that'll take us to our next item. This is a resolution approving a collective bargaining agreement with our International Association of Firefighters. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Support.
All right, moved and supported. We have Mr. Deeren here, but I'll see City Manager. Do you want to say anything about this item?
I
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We're pleased to bring yet another agreement that we've successfully negotiated with one of our labor unions, Fire Department. And as you'll hear from Mr. Deering, we're especially pleased to bring forth, I think, what is a very competitive pay and benefits during this very challenging time of recruiting and retaining employees. But also, we have codified language in the agreement that solidifies the role of the Office of Oversight and Public Accountability that will give the office the ability to not only monitor from afar the internal affairs of the fire department, but also be part of the ongoing monitoring of any investigation, actually be in the room when the investigations are being conducted, should there be the need for that. So this both creates the benefits for the employees, and they're doing a great job in the fire department. We have one of the best fire departments in the country, but it also furthers some of the goals that we had in terms of community engagement and public safety in general. And so we hope to not only bring this forward, but also allow this to serve as a model for some of the other agreements that are still being negotiated.
Thank you, City Manager, and I know our chief back there agrees with that statement about the best department in the country, as well as many of us up here, so I see him smiling. Ken, you want to tell us about this item?
Sure, good morning. The highlights include a 3% reduction to the employee pension contribution for those employees hired after 2012, increase in the city's RHSA employer contribution from $1,750 to $2,250 annually. We're adding Juneteenth as a paid holiday. Includes a 4% increase to the base for employees who obtain certification of EMT or higher. Includes a 6% wage raise in the first year, 1% the second year, and 1% in the third year. And as the manager indicated, it includes OPA language.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, I'll add my thanks to the bargaining team and everyone for coming together to work on this contract and get us to this voluntary agreement. So, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It carries. All right, next that will take us to a salary ordinance for employees represented by the Grand Rapids Firefighters Union. Again, this is kind of a companion item with the following resolution. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right, moved and supported. Ken, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, the salary ordinance would just approve the wages, the 6%, 1%, and 1%.
Great.
For the 3-year term.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, that will take us to our next item. This is an ordinance amending Section 1 of the Budget Ordinance for fiscal year 2023, Amendment number 5.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. We have our CFO here to tell us about this item.
This is just to accommodate the contract, as there were things that were not included when we adopted the budget in May that we're adjusting for now. All the adjustments do occur within the general fund, so it's a little more than $800,000.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, we anticipated this to happen as we work through our labor negotiations, so I don't think any of us are surprised by this item coming forward. With that, we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It carries. All right, Commissioners, that will take us to our 2 updates and briefings this morning. And then just a reminder that we did move up our public safety meeting, and that is today at noon, correct? Okay, so I just want to make sure we draw your attention to that. So we'll start today with a partner briefing from, are you looking at, did I say something wrong?
No, you're fine. I just, Mayor, before we get too far from the last item, we'll also have to bring back a future item that will adjust the pension ordinance based on the actions that came here today. So that'll occur at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. No, that's a good reminder for all of us that we still have some additional amendments to make based on labor negotiations. So Commissioners, as I said, we have two updates today. One is an important briefing from our partners at the Rapid. I serve on the Rapid board, so I'm familiar with a lot of the information going to be shared with you today, but I think this is an important update, especially coming out of the pandemic and as we look to the future of mobility in our community and making sure people have access to public transportation. So with that, I'll turn it over to our partners at the Rapid for this briefing, and then Commissioners, at the end, I'll provide some time for Q&A. Welcome.
Thank you. And good morning. Thanks for the introduction, Mayor.
Oh, Nico, is your microphone on? Go ahead.
There
you
we go.
Better.
Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. Good morning, City Commissioners, City Manager, and staff. Really excited to be here. We want to share kind of a dose of excitement with everything that we're doing. So today we'll chat about some of the ridership and projections. We had a fantastic ride with the city manager a couple of weeks ago, so sort of a nod to that experience. Some ridership updates and perceptions that we've seen through surveys, our partnership with Mobile GR on shelter and trash cans. Quick update on Division United, some facilities that we've built, a climate action and zero emission plan, and then to end it with our 20-year vision of our transit master plan, which will be kicking off soon. So this is all of our fixed route, okay? That purple line on top is pre-pandemic and 2019, fiscal year 2019. And so that very steep blue dip is when the pandemic hit and shutdowns, stay-at-home orders. And so that red line was last year, and that yellow line is where we are now. So we see our last dot there in September of 22. And it's become common in the industry now to no longer refer to and look at our ridership as recovery or comparing it to pre-pandemic. We're at a completely new phase, and so omitting that purple line on top is sort of the new normal in the industry. And as we kind of see, we're showing consistent growth year over year and getting our rides back. Looking at we have two Dash here. We have Dash West and Dash North. Similarly, to show these patterns, these are monthly weekday averages. And similarly, the FY19, that purple line on top, and then that yellow line is kind of, again, recovering of where it was over the past couple of years. Same thing on Dash North. Although some of the frequencies have fluctuated over the past couple of years, that's not shown on this graph. But again, continuously monitoring these data points. We've got a good relationship with staff. We share this information and been privileged to work with Dash 3.0 kind of brainstorming phase that is happening right now too. In January of this year, we launched a pilot, a micro-transit pilot, these two zones in the northwest corner in Walker and then in the industrial area in the southeast in Kentwood. With these transit Ford vans, we've fully ADA accessible, similar to an Uber or a Lyft, where areas of industrial large footprints that aren't traditionally served by fixed route implemented this in January. Over the months, we've seen a continuous growth in ridership, a little bit more so in Kentwood, but with over the past few months, a lot more public outreach, a lot more refinement to the mechanics and the logistics of how the service works. So we're confident that we're going to continue to see these figures rise. We did an Epic MRA survey over the past 8 years. We can see that overall we've seen a level of positive rating increase to a level of 78% this past year, close by where we were in 2017, but also very confident that we will continue to see this positive rating grow as well. On the paratransit side with GoBus, just under half of our GoBus clients take the trip for medical appointments, as well as just under half to work. But 67% expressed they were satisfied with the service, and just over a quarter expressed they were very satisfied. All 100% of the clients feel safe riding GoBus, and that the drivers operate the GoBus very safely. 97% perceive the GoBus as being clean. Additionally, from this survey, we've got an array of the respondents based on gender and race. And again, we're attentive to how this reflects into the actual demographics of our community, and persistent in ensuring that we are reaching out equitably as possible. This is a map of the shelter project that we started to partner with the city a few years ago. The city of Grand Rapids, you can see overlaid on our 6 cities. The green dots are locations that have been installed, and the blue dots are yet to be installed. So there's 43 more shelters ready to be installed, a handful yet this fall, a majority of them yet next year. But again, with the coordination with Mobile GR staff and design team, ensuring the appropriate size shelter fits in the context of the right-of-way, where ridership is most impacted by these installations, as well as, again, being attentive with neighborhoods of focus and ensuring that the equity is our North Star in a lot of these placements as well. We also had a trash can installation partnership. We put residential trash bins at 72 locations around the system. And this makes it manageable for the city system to collect these. There is a small hole on top of these, so this is not something that you can open the lid and empty the trash. Since we've started this partnership, we've not received any complaints of litter or trash around our bus stops, nor on the adjacent right-of-way where the bus stops are. So pretty successful first step here with this partnership. And wanted to show this, again, with the theme of that coordination with city staff as well. These dots here on the left is the sort of the core near neighborhoods of Grand Rapids, and on the right is downtown. These are the micro-mobility zones, the red dots. The smaller dots are bus stops. And again, coordinating where these DPZ zones are located, largely intending on co-locating them with our bus stops for the purposes of this kind of small mobility hub. We see that the data's not yet definitive to understand whether or not some of these rides that are taken are displacing from our fixed route or dash service, but we largely see some correlation with that. They're supplementing the individual's trips. So that data is continuing to be looked at, and I'm certain that we'll have more indications of the overall impact in the future. Quickly briefing on Division United, this 520-page document was finished last fall. The 3 primary buckets there on the top on the right, equitable development strategies, mobility and connectivity, and placemaking and placekeeping strategies. And these then have been distilled down into goals, and then each specific goal has its own unique identifier. And the partners in Grand Rapids, Kentwood, and Wyoming have been tracking these, have all of these elements identified. And so trying to kind of work with the partners to identifying the appropriate sequence so that we can implement all of these recommendations that are included in this study. Moving on, we are building a park and ride lot, 120 space park and ride lot at Lake Michigan Drive in Cummings, just to the north of the Lakerline platform at Cummings. We were $10 million under budget on the Lakerline project. The FTA was very happy about that and awarded us $5 million of that back to do some expanded scope. So this is one of those pieces. It's underway now. It should be concluding within the next month. But here's just a rendering of kind of the placemaking strategy involved with similar aesthetic motifs on the design of the Lakerline. But again, to establish that placemaking and the value of dignifying the place for folks that are parking there and waiting for the Lakerline. So in context here, the platform is immediately to the left of this image with Lake Michigan Drive just on the other side of that platform. And now I will hand it over to my colleague, Kevin.
Thanks, Nick. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some of our capital projects and how they're impacting our service to our passengers. When we program these things, we're really looking at how we can improve the customer experience and how we can really enhance the services that we offer. And we are really excited about some of these projects and the effects that they'll have. The first one is because we've been operating the Silver Line as a major transit corridor for 7 years, we're now eligible for a new grant from the Federal Transit Administration to help keep that in a state of good repair. So for this year, we did receive approximately $1.5 million from the Federal Transit Administration, and that's all going to maintain and repair and enhance the Silver Line platforms. I think they've been on the street now for about 7-8 years, so a lot of them are in need of some upgrades and some repairs. So we'll have a great pot of funding to put this in action and really improve the experience along the Silver Line. Obviously, our central station is also another big point of interest and emphasis for this. We were able to paint the entire steel structure last year. However, the passenger amenities for the platform itself are once again getting dated. They've been in operation for almost 20 years now, so they've been out there for a while. So we want to do a comprehensive project to update all the passenger amenities and attributes of the platform, including just repair of the surface, new infotainment to provide better passenger information, improve seating, lighting, and passenger address system, PA system. So once again, to really enhance the customer experience as they pass through our busiest point in the system, Rapid Central Station. One project that's just off the ground now is our Bush Drive Operations Center. So this deals with our GO Bus, our paratransit service that you see for people with disabilities and seniors. We have a contractor who provides this service, but for years the contractor leased the space. They leased the space in Cottage Grove, which was adequate, but it wasn't under our control. So if they left or the lease expired, we'd have nowhere to operate our paratransit service, which obviously is unacceptable. So for a while, we wanted a dedicated space for this. We were able, over Christmas or so last year, we came across this property. It's Bush Drive along 196, pretty close to the Granville Castle. This was a Meekoff Trucking, and they were looking to sell the property. So we were very interested in that, and we had to work through some hurdles and such, but the Federal Transit Administration was very cooperative with us, and we were able to come to an agreement to purchase this in June, and then we took possession in September and began operations out of there on October 1st, which was a bit of a whirlwind. As a former trucking center, it has a great space. It also has maintenance bays that were basically ready to go. So we looked at comparisons if we had to do like a tear down and rebuild somewhere else, and we're saving probably in the neighborhood of $10 million on this project. So it was really a win-win for us. We do have a new contractor for our ADA paratransit, Transdev, who began operations out of this with the brand new facility on October 1st. So there was a lot to move through, but everyone worked really well and we're up and running. And we're excited because this also gives us opportunity to expand into other alternative fueling technologies and such in the future. So it's been a great start. We did also reconstruct our facilities maintenance building. This is at 700 Butterworth Southwest. Thanks for the partnership of the city of moving through this and allowing us to do this project. We rebuilt our administration space there. The old one, which we took over when we bought about 8 years ago, was inaccessible and did not meet our needs. We also repaved the site and added sheds, salt storage, so it's just a much better, it allows our facilities maintenance department to work with the community in a much more comprehensive way. We had our open house there for our employees a couple weeks ago, and it is all up and running and is a massive improvement over what we had. I'd like to transition a little to talk about some of the plans that we have for moving forward. We have a couple plans that may be of interest. The first is a climate action plan. This is a plan that was suggested we work with from the Federal Transit Administration, but not everyone did. But we felt it was important to have this as a basis for moving forward. At a high level, it has three main goals. By 2030, 100% renewable natural gas using throughout our facilities and fleet. And I'll talk a little more about that. Decreasing our total greenhouse gas emissions of our transit fleet by 25% by 2030. And then to have new facilities that will accommodate other zero-emission technologies as we begin to look at electric and hydrogen fuel cell buses and whatever may emerge in the future as well. Related to that, we also have a zero-emission bus plan. This is something required by the Federal Transit Administration to apply for grants to kind of move into a zero-emission bus direction. So just right now, for context, about 60% of our fleet is compressed natural gas, 40% is diesel, but within 5 years, we will completely phase out the diesel buses, and they'll all be either compressed natural gas or other alternative fuel, which we're very excited about, and will eliminate the particulate matter that goes with that. Said we're moving the entire fleet towards CNG, and the exciting part for us is that that's actually going to be renewable natural gas thanks to a partnership with the City of Grand Rapids and DTE on the biodigester. So, I mean, that's a great start for our zero emission bus plan. It allows us actually to use negative carbon input, and it's a really exciting opportunity for us that we're obviously embarking on now. So that's a big part of the plan we're also moving forward with. And as an added bonus now, the city CNG vehicles will be fueling with the RNG at that facility as well. So it's a great win-win-win actually for all the partners involved. So thank you very much for your help with that project. With that, I'll turn it back to Nick.
Thank you, Kevin. So lastly, Transit Master Plan. I tried to find an image that kind of captured this excitement of the future, but without flying cars and kind of funny things like that. I settled on a map. That's probably the planner in me. But so we're starting a 20-year strategic vision. That's going to start in the next month or two for the duration of 2023. And just highlighting some elements here on the map. So in addition to Grand Rapids and the 6 cities in which we serve, we are going to have separate modules that are going to look beyond our 6 cities into the adjacent townships that are captured kind of in this light purple area, kind of the GVMC urbanized zone, the urbanized area. And then on top of that, into adjacent counties. We understand that the benefit of the city of Grand Rapids is not only within mobility needs just within the confines of the boundaries of the city of Grand Rapids, and that there is so much more systemic need outside of Grand Rapids, outside of the 6 cities, and into the adjacent townships and counties. So fully understanding what those needs are, assessing those as appropriately as possible, and then coming up with a 20-year vision. Now, what I really want to point out, I think, is the importance of how we're building this scope of work into a phased implementation plan. So as opposed to a linear kind of sequential 20-year vision, do this first, do that next, and so on, we're going to create an array of indicators that we can then put a various amount of inputs in from all of our partners to understand what course corrections we should be making at any given time in 1 year, and 2 years, and 5 years, and so on. So that we're constantly being proactive about what we can do to better serve our community, better serve our region. So excited about that approach. And I think this all ends up leading into this culmination of enthusiasm and excitement in that in addition to this Transit Master Plan, in addition to Division United, in addition to working with staff at Mobile GR, we've got a transportation demand management study that GVMC is leading. We've got an airport access study that GVMC is leading as well. The Grand Rapids Master Plan that's getting underway. There is a lot of coordinated efforts that all need to fit into those pieces as appropriately as possible to make the outcomes of all of these projects be as successful as possible, right? So that's sort of our collective North Star. And multiplied these mechanical efforts with the relationships that have been built, both within the Rapid, within the city, and all of our other partners in this mobility sphere, we all believe that we are on the road to a very exciting future. So grateful to be a part of it. It's a privilege to present to you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Kevin. I have a couple comments and then maybe, not really a question, but maybe you can share with this commission some of the other exciting things that we're doing at the Rapid. One, thank you for bringing up our climate action plan. I know that's been a priority around this table, and we know that we don't have full authority over the Rapid. I remind everyone when they tell me what I should tell the Rapid to do that I am one of 6 cities that are a part of the authority, and that we work together regionally, and that our Rapid is a regional asset and authority, not a City of Grand Rapids run facility. So thank you for bringing that up. I know we've done a lot of work around our climate action goals, and it's nice to see the work start to come to fruition, especially with the recent biodigester coming online for renewable natural gas. Thank you also for sharing some of the work we're doing countywide. So colleagues, if you hadn't heard, we have been talking with the county about looking at a countywide assessment of mobility needs. Al Vandenberg, the chief executive over at the county, is very interested in this, as are some of our county commissioners, at least doing a good analysis and looking at what are some potential ways that we can meet the needs countywide, especially in areas that are outside of the service delivery. And the Rapid is active in those conversations and will be a part of those discussions moving forward. And then last, I don't know, Nick, if you want to talk about this, or Deb, if you want to talk about this, we are also looking at some other exciting projects. One of them, we're exploring adding a daycare to our main facility there at the Rapid. It's an early exploration. We got some grant funding to explore it a little bit more deeply, recognizing that that location is a great potential location to better serve individual needs of families that utilize the Rapid. So Nick, do you want to talk about where that is? Or Deb, do you want to talk about that exciting project? I know many of us around this table here and are aware of the growing need for daycare for families.
Good morning, thank you. So we're in the feasibility phase of this. Is it feasible in a building that it's the first LEED certified transit center in the country 16 years ago. It's got excess space that we've never used. It's FTA funded, so we had to first ask them, can we do something else with it? Original thought was, can we get a cafe? Can we take someone whose business had been shuttered during COVID and put them in a rent-free zone to give them a lift up? That took a lot more time, and in the meantime, the daycare child enrichment center came to forefront. So right now we're in the middle of, is it feasible? And here's some of the things. And if I didn't work in New York City, I would have said the same thing. You're gonna have kids around buses and concrete. But yes, it's all possible. But we also have founders across the street, so alcohol, young people, buses, the land that we're actually built on, what's the environmentals below that. So we think we'll have some information somewhere around the first week of January on whether it's feasible in terms of facility, and then we'll move really quickly to try and get some of the educational pieces stood up. So that's the Enrichment Center and GRPS. So that's where that stands, but I'm hopeful. So we've talked about, we're repositioning ourselves as not so much of a bus company, because people, you're the bus company, but no, we're the access company. And so with access, there's equity lens. And I used to be part of the group 20 years ago, this empty buses aren't good, they should be jam-packed and we should be running most efficient. But I think the pandemic has changed everybody's mind about who needs to ride on a bus, who needs access to great health care. And if there's only 2 people, I'm still committed to run the service that we need to education, to health care, to employment, and labor scarcity has only amplified that. We feel like we have a lot of federal funding that we can amplify throughout the 6 cities, and so every dollar that comes through us, we can bring out to the community in 6, 7, 8-fold. So with that, I'd be happy to take any other questions.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for sharing that. I know I get the pleasure of serving on the board, so I'm aware of a lot of this work going on behind the scenes, and I just wanted to make sure that my colleagues were aware as well. So, Commissioners, any questions or comments? I'll start with Commissioner Lanier.
Thank you, Deb. It's so good to see you and Nick
person.
and Kevin. Yeah, right, physically. Thanks for that question, Mayor, regarding the daycare. I had it on my list of how do I ask this without saying all of those words, because I didn't know how public the discussion was. So thank you for just sharing it. I have just a couple questions or comments regarding the Go Bus perception survey results, I was wondering if the percentages are of the respondents or riders, because we know that not every rider probably took the survey. So I'm just curious about that, because I know there had been some concerns about the previous vendor, which I'm delighted to know that there is a new vendor and that people are being picked up a little bit more timely than some of the complaints that we were hearing about. So that's one question. I'll just rattle off all the questions and then you all can pick and choose who to respond.
I'm not going to remember it.
Okay, well then go ahead, respond to that then.
It was a randomized sample of our GoBus customer base.
Okay, great. And then I just wanted to say thank you, especially for the trash on the picture, the one on Kalamazoo near Nelson. Thank you for that one specifically, for putting that there. And then I think, on slide 13, there's a map with some dots talking about mobility zones. And I think at this table, we've had some discussions surrounding how do we integrate the scooter rentals and bike rentals into this same map, so that then we can help to extend the mobility options that people have.
Sure, yeah.
And have we had those conversations with you, I guess is the next question.
Yeah, I think at this stage, we're preliminarily looking at the impact that relationship has spatially with where these zones are and to where our bus stops are. I know in working with Mobile GR staff, the next phase is to kind of understand, a little bit deeper kind of the implications at play between that, how that together works. How does that single ride of that individual work by utilizing what's at the DPZ zones and using that bus? How can that act seamlessly? I know there were a couple of instances in the past that we resolved quickly where there was a bus stop and then the zone, but then you get off the back of the bus and then you're inside a bunch of scooters, so I think there's a lot of sense of the importance of that spatial awareness to how because there's a lot of competition for the space on the street and especially on that right of way. So constantly looking to optimize that. I know that that's something that we are talking about all the time.
That's great. That was my question about the daycare. And then I think the last one was just also, thanking you for highlighting the climate action plan that you all have. As the mayor indicated, that has been a discussion that we've been trying to elevate. And I'm glad to see that the Rapid is also elevating that discussion as well. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioners, Commissioner Repart?
Yeah, thanks. Just affirmations for me too. I now am a father of a regular Rapid user she's been riding the bus home from school, and her friends have had nothing but positive and safe feelings as they've made that transition. I drive by the new building on Butterworth Street every day because of the construction on Wealthy, and the building looks great from the street. I'm looking forward to how that's going to roll out. I too want to thank you for your climate action plan, and as well as exploring this concept for a daycare. When I was working with the Early Learning Neighborhood Collaborative, we had this concept that Dick Bukowski and I really championed called Las Escuelitas, where you put these daycare centers in places where working parents can access them. And the original idea was that you put them in affordable housing complexes, which we've done at 415 Franklin and Plaza Roosevelt, both of which are on transit corridors as well. Working parent can walk downstairs, drop off their kid, and go to work. And the same thing, I think, could be true at the Central Station. So I think that's a really unique opportunity to support working families, and I appreciate your exploration of that concept.
Yeah, thanks. Commissioner Moody, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I did have a question on the action plan. Everybody has somewhat kind of literally almost said the same thing that I was going to say. But I do want to ask the question as to how long would it be before you put that plan in the writing where we have access to it?
It's on our website right now under Rapid and then under Planning. We could also send a copy of it if that would be helpful to as well. But it is available on our website right now along with the zero emission bus plan.
Yeah.
Could you send me a copy?
Yeah, Kevin, can you follow up and send it to the full commission?
Yes, we will
Okay.
do that. Thanks.
That'd be great. Thanks, Commissioner Isasi.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentations. I'll echo the thanks from my colleagues and and have a different topic. I wanted to just hear more about the Rapid Connect. Workforce development used to be a space that I was very much involved in, and I'm not so much anymore. So you had mentioned that the Kentwood area seemed to have more engagement. So can you highlight what those numbers are in terms of individuals and/or companies, and also the times that you all are doing that?
This is a great project. So, Nick, you're gonna
I could
elaborate
start. I know that we've been very aggressive with some newly hired outreach folks over the summer months. They've been talking to and tracking a number of agencies, organizations, businesses on a daily basis, both in Walker and in Kentwood. It's from 6 to 10 p.m. And so we're mapping out ridership by hour. We're following up with, there's over 1,000 people that have signed up for the app and actually has registered. And we have staff that are reaching back out to those folks that have not necessarily ridden yet to understand, why didn't you ride? Was it not in your geography? Was it, so understanding all of the variables to help them maybe take that first ride, right? So how do we introduce them, I think, a little bit more intentionally as a kind of a one-on-one travel training? So with that individual business location outreach, as well as kind of that individualized travel training or understanding how this is working and how can we better optimize, whether it's through the app, whether the geography needs to be different where we serve, are the hours different? We're hearing a lot more folks that are interested in beyond the 10 p.m. hour, which is when our system stops right now. So taking all that information and then kind of figuring out ways that we can better improve, and we're doing that on a daily basis. We've got agency-wide task force meetings twice a week in which we digest all of this information to continue to refine. So.
Yeah, this is exciting. I know, my goodness, it feels like a year or two ago we talked about it, doing a pilot, collecting data, really looking at how we think differently about the future of mobility and take into consideration on, people want on demand. We know that there's a need for more micro mobility instead of fixed route systems. And so I'm excited to see this move forward and to see this chart and utilization. And the data analysts, analyzing the data regularly is very informative, and I think is going to be helpful as we look to the future and look to our long-term 20-year strategic plan. So, yeah. All right, Commissioners, any final questions? All right, City Manager, I'll close and thank our partners again for coming, and thank you for all your work. I get to see firsthand the great work happening at the Rapid, and I'm glad we get to highlight it here today. So thank you. City Manager, any final thoughts as we move to the next item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I too want to thank my colleague, Ms. Brano, for being here, and also I did mention the opportunity to ride throughout the city with her, and just to see, while the numbers on the chart would reflect a decrease in ridership, my experience doing 4 to 5 o'clock hours, just the opposite. All those rides were full during that time. So there is a significant demand. I think if we were to look at the analysis by time, what you would see, people going to work and coming home from work. I mean, those buses were full in every instance. And I appreciate the work that has been done to give those riders dignity, both at the bus stops and hearing what you're doing with child care facilities, the way we treat air travel versus local bus passengers. There's a difference, and part of it is it's more convenient for air travelers because there's a higher cost to access it. But what we do for the people from the, as you mentioned earlier, equity lens, it's not always reflected in ridership, and we know we have some work to do. Specifically when it comes to the Dash. And we're looking forward to having that conversation with you in more detail about the Dash ridership and the conversations we had about the expansion of that service beyond the downtown area at our retreat on the 10th. And then lastly, I do want to thank the Rapid, as well as our departments here from the city, our refuse department working together on the waste collection program and looking forward to the expansion of that to recycling at the bus stops.
Thank you. And I'll also give a shout out to Josh Naramore at our mobile GR department. He works very closely with the Rapid, and we really appreciate that. So thanks, Josh. All right. With that, we will finish up that briefing on the Rapid. Thank you all again for coming down on this beautiful fall Tuesday. And now, Commissioners, we're going to transition to our next update. This is an update on the participatory budgeting process, a process that is we've been working on for well over a year. Mr. Doug Matthews has been the point person here at the city, helping to lead that process. I'm excited to be where we are today. Voting has closed. We have our top vote getters, and we're going to talk about what those items are that are being recommended, as well as next steps. So I think I'll turn to City Manager, see if he has anything to add, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Matthews. City Manager?
Mayor, I'll just defer to Mr. Matthews. I do want to thank him for his work and looking forward to the implementation of this process, because I'm excited to hear the feedback from the community, and I think at this point we're looking for the initial affirmation of this from the commission, and then that will allow us to launch and actually execute on what has been determined. So thank you for the work, Mr. Matthews, and to you, all the staff members, as well as our citizens who participate in this process.
Great, thank you. All right, Mr. Matthews, take it away.
Yes, when we last spoke, I shared with you that we were in the midst of voting and we still had a few days left to go. We're now done, and we have the results. So here's our schedule as laid out at the beginning of the process. We were able to cross out one more line on this chart. And now we're looking for your, not necessarily formal approval, but certainly endorsement of what it is that we're doing. And at that point, as the manager referenced, then we're ready to start implementing. So the ball kind of comes back into our court at this point. So we had more than 2,000 people participate, and you see the distribution there. The largest number were in the second ward, with pretty equal distribution in the first and the third.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
That was the second ward, Mr. Jones.
All right.
What was interesting about the process, and this really speaks to the work that was done to take this vote out into communities and empower community members to be a part of that process. We actually, thanks for the reference, Mr. Hondorp, leased 34 tablets and had the ballots on tablets that we could take out into the community and meet people where they were at, have them participate and provide their votes. You'll see that 83% of those participants use the tablets. By far the majority, 10% on paper ballot and only 7% on personal devices. So it really speaks for us, it educates us on the methodologies that we use for this kind of engagement, which was part of the reason for doing this in the first place, right? So here's where we're at. We had $600,000 allocated to the first ward. You'll see these are the top 6 items. There are a few more items on the list. What we're sharing here is what we're going to be able to fund. These are in order of how they were voted. The one note that I will make on here is number 6, that Citizen Advocacy Skills Academy, almost as hard to say as participatory budgeting. The original budget was $100,000, but when you add up the rest of these items, we have $80,000 left. Feel like we can probably execute on that original idea with that, since it is a pilot program. Second ward had $400,000 allocated. The first item on the list was to invest in mental health community first response. You all heard from the chief. We're doing some of that work already, but they want to see us really lean into that work, and we're going to see how we can do that. Now, that leaves us with $50,000. And we were faced with the dilemma, do we skip items on the list until we get to one
that we can use that $50,000 for. And in our discussion, because we do have that additional funding on Cure Violence, and there have been some discussions about extending that into Ward 2, that we would use the remaining $50,000 to help fund that expansion and then supplement that with some of the funding that we've had come in from other sources. So the second item on there is an expansion of Cure Violence into Ward 2. Federal grants, sorry, yes. Third Ward had $1 million allocated. The number one item was addressing lead in the community, specifically lead water line replacement. Now, we've had some conversations both with the steering committee and internally about how do we utilize this $500,000 to both meet the expectation but also meet some of the equity expectations of the program. So we're going to talk a little bit more about whether this money just goes into the bucket with the program that we have, or if there's some kind of intentional things that we can do. So that's going to be a discussion that we have before we actually move it forward. Affordable child care for second and third shift workers, you'll see that that item actually appeared on both the first and the third ward ballots, which gives us the opportunity as we develop an RFP, rather than having $145,000 to have almost $300,000 that we can invest in a pilot. Then youth affordable housing support, that also appeared on both ballots. And community-based violence reduction. And we'll talk more about it, but our additional thinking is with some of the whole government work that we're doing in the DICE response areas, that this may be an opportunity to really, the intent of that program is not just that we bring ourselves to the table, but that we empower the community to take ownership of some of those things as well. This may be an opportunity to bring both of those things together in a really effective way. So next steps. Number one, woohoo. We're going to celebrate with the steering committee as the baton gets passed back to us to execute on the community's expectations. We're going to work with the appropriate departments on scoping and development of the strategies and or the RFPs where that's required. A number of these are going to be RFP items that we put back out to the community for them to bid to be able to provide the services. We're going to be working with the Urban Core Coalition. Part of the $350,000 grant that was received to support this work was to have some programming to help educate local community members and nonprofits on how to get registered in the city system, how to prepare an effective and responsive RFP. So we're going to be doing that work as we're preparing this information to go out. We'll solicit the proposals, we'll execute the agreements, and then we'll move into a measuring and reporting phase where we're seeing what the impact and effectiveness of these programs and projects are. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matthews. So I'll just make a comment, and then what I would like to do is maybe start with the first ward and turn to my colleagues in the first ward, see if they have any questions, then go to second, then to third. And then we can collectively talk about next steps. But I want to just start by saying thank you to the steering committee. Really appreciate all their work over this past year. And I was glad to see the votes come in and get us to this space where we now can talk about execution and what that looks like. Obviously, after we go through a process with an RFP and we identify our partners to implement these, all of those items will have to come back to this body for final approval. And then what I would like to see, and I'm sure Mr. Matthews is already thinking about this, how do we collect data, look at impact, and really measure outcomes from this process? I know that that is a little premature. We'll be talking about that in the months ahead and obviously doing that monitoring next year. But I would, now that we have gotten through this portion of the process, the steering committee, the idea, the ideation, the voting, and now it's back to us, I would like more regular updates and conversations with this entire body, at a minimum with the wards, so that we can stay more actively engaged now that it's gotten to this point. So I'm sure you've already thought about that. So I think I'll start with First Ward to see your questions and comments that you may have. Commissioner Repart?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. First I want to thank the steering committee members, particularly Bo, Mallory, and Michael from the First Ward. They really did give an extraordinary amount of effort to this process, and so did the staff. I also appreciate that RFP training that you're going to do with the UCC, because I think that as much as our systems are pretty clear, navigating that for the first time for some of these entities might be a little bit challenging. But we got to fund 6 out of the 9 options in the first ward, so in some ways I'm really excited about that, and I do look forward to the synergy between the child care and the youth affordable housing support with the third ward. I think that that's going to be unique, and other than that, there's lots to learn through this process, but thankful that people voted, thankful for the neighborhood associations and those community partners who stepped up to help with that, and those budget delegates. It really was a lot of on the ground, boots on the ground kind of work. So I'm just really grateful that we're at this point.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And I should also add, all of us were able to see the entire list of ideas. And so I think there's a lot for us to think about in the years ahead as we look at, what else we want to invest in. So, Commissioner O'Connor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm glad that this worked out. I think to Commissioner Reppart's point, it's really good, with 8 items available and we can fund 6 of them. Obviously there's a lot to learn here, but we're hopeful that, there's going to be good outcomes too. That's, I think, what I'm most looking forward to is, seeing these things get implemented and then, really seeing what the impacts actually end up being. So.
Yeah, thanks. All right, I'll turn to my second ward colleagues. Any questions or feedback for Mr. Matthews? I'll start with my senior over here, my senior commissioner, Commissioner Jones.
No, just quite pleased with the result. I know that obviously there were more than a few to choose from. I can appreciate in particular the desire to want to go in, I guess, lean in more around the mental health community, first responders. And yet I can also appreciate the what the residents see as a priority around community violence. I think there were quite a few folks who I spoke with who were somewhat surprised that it had shown up as an option. But again, I think it's just a reminder that no one knows the community better than those who live there. So I was, again, happy to see the top 2 and how that turned out. And I can't say that I'm surprised that we were the ones, the ward that had the most engagement. It's called, it's not a high expectation, it's what we do. And so I just wanted to close with that, so thank you. I'll turn now to my colleague.
No competition, we're all in this together. Commissioner
The mayor also
Isasi?
lives in the second ward, right?
I do, I'm trying to be very, very objective here.
Well, and I think Commissioner Lanier likes to be a honorary as a past polar bear. So, no, it's wonderful. I think when I think back to the first meetings about this, and there was a lot of questions, uncertainty, and I think that's the reality because we had not really defined some of these elements of community engagement. And so I echo what you said, Commissioner Reppart, about thanking those that were involved with the process, sticking through it, and just having another way for people to engage and to get involved. And I want to say thank you. I think the library was one of the locations as well, so thank you to them for being involved in this effort. That's usually a staple for many families to just head out to the library, so I appreciated that. I too am not surprised by sort of what happened to be the 2 in our ward. I think we are continuing to have this evolving conversation about what does it mean to be safe and secure in this city, and I appreciate the efforts of executive staff, of you, city manager, to continue to say, what does public safety mean? How do we remain healthy in this city? And so really looking at the mental health crisis that we have in our community that we know existed before the pandemic, but certainly after this pandemic. And so I'm excited about that. I think cure violence as well. We've had, when I think about also how some of these topics have played out in some of our neighborhood meetings, October is a really big month for annual meetings for our neighborhood association. So I know also our neighborhood association partners are looking for ways to be more involved in that public safety conversation so that it's not always sort of after the fact, but it's really sort of that prevention piece. And then lastly, what I wanted to say too is, I think Asante, for when I'm thinking about safe, I would love to hear more about this scoping out with the strategies and RFPs, because this is a conversation that we've been having with SAFE as well, in terms of the dollars that we expend. And really, can we have an across-the-board process where individuals who want to work with the city, they feel really confident about the RFP. It helps to eliminate a lot of the duplication for our city staffers, because I know you've spent countless hours on those things. And so if we can connect on that as well for efficiency, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for raising that up, Commissioner, and I appreciate both your comments. I also thought about, is there an opportunity for us to think about our neighborhood match fund process as well? And so I think there's a lot for us to think about and to take what we learned from this process and maybe even integrate it into some of the other things that we do with pots of money we set aside to invest in neighborhoods. So thank you for saying that. All right, I will turn to my third ward commissioners, and again, I'll start with my senior commissioner, Commissioner Lanier. You want to start us off on this, and then I'll turn to Commissioner Moody.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the committee, Pastor Kenneth Hoskins, Christian Grant, Lakia Jenkins. Thanks to the staff and the community, and I'd also like to highlight DeAndre Jones. Thank you for being such a champion and sharing this wherever you were. It's much appreciated.
Thanks for giving that shout out to DeAndre Jones. I thought the same thing when I was reading about the votes. I know he's been one of the advocates out there encouraging people to vote and to educate people about this process. So thank you. Commissioner Moody?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for this. I've been looking forward to seeing what the outcome would be from those individuals who are part of the Preparatory Budget Committee. So I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in reference to how we're going to distribute our $1 million. I believe in if you got it, spend it on the right reasons and for the just causes. So I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen. I still got a little bit concerned about what shift workers are. And I guess I'm waiting to see how that's going to work out. But thank you. You don't have to answer that.
Well, I think that does open up to one of the things that we have to be honest about at this point is that the folks that submitted the ideas are not experts in the work. So, the proposals were built around the ideas that were offered, and now we have a responsibility to really be thoughtful about how we fill in those blanks, get to those definitions, and put something together that fulfills what the expectations were that were articulated. And we're going to be doing that with all of these, because none of these were provided to us as kind of a RFP that we could just flip over and put out the door. So that's our next step.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. I'm excited about the next steps because I think it'll provide an opportunity for us to take those original ideas, what people voted on. We know where those buckets are based on the feedback from the community and what the community thinks is a priority and what they need in their wards, in their neighborhoods. And it will give us a chance to develop a process for people to bid that can be partners with us. I look at this, some of this work we're already doing, like even with the lead replacement lines. Is there a way for us to take and think creatively about how do we enhance this work and maybe even do more for families that have potentially lead lines within their homes that they can't afford to replace. So I'm excited about the possibilities that this presents to us to really identify how we can put these dollars to use, but also potentially even leverage them with partners in the community that are already doing some of this work and doing it effectively. And so what I trust that the city staff are going to go back and do that due diligence, go back to the original proposals, go back to the original ideas, really work through a thoughtful and comprehensive RFP. And then throughout that process, I would like the city staff to continue to update us on that process so that we are very well informed about how we plan to execute. I want to make sure that we do this as effectively as possible now that it's back in our hands. And I'm with you, Commissioner. I think the sooner we can get these dollars out the door, the better. We know that, especially with ARPA funds, they have to be expended by the end of 2024. And so we know that there's not just an urgency to the needs but also an urgency to the timeline. So, City Manager, did you have any closing comments before we close?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a little break, Commissioners, before Public Safety.
Mayor, I'm glad you mentioned the requirement for ARPA spending, because that's the basis of my comment, to make sure that we now focus on a very timely implementation. This process has taken us almost 2 budget cycles to get to this step, and so it's been worth it. We've learned a lot, but now I expect us to do what we do with any approved budget adopted by the commission and try to execute on that in the current fiscal year. So to the extent possible, that's what we'll do. I went to a community meeting at Link Up a couple of weeks ago, and DeAndre was there as well as others, and there were questions about the next round of this. And my response was, we have to implement this round. And we have around 12, I think, projects, ideas that have been implemented, but over 100 or so, hundreds or whatever that number was that we still have that have not been implemented. So I think the process is good. It identified outcomes, the finalists for this round, but also we will have those other projects that were submitted but not yet funded to inform us in both future budgeting in general, as well as any other funding that we may receive. So I just wanted to say that this is not about just winners and losers from this process, but there's a robust process that will take to implement this, but also to reflect on the other ideas that have been submitted. And lastly, on the housing part, we were talking about synergy between daycares, between projects between wards, or the career violence and other things where we have, it's not unique to one ward. I do also want to mention on the housing initiative for youth housing that the Affordable Housing Fund has also been discussing how to put out an RFP for the almost $6 million that's been allocated thus far. And yet that's another potential place where we can leverage synergistic efforts and perhaps include this process for the PB amount in that, or have another carve-out process. So we'll be working on how to operationalize what was approved by the citizen voting.
Thank you, City Manager. All right, Commissioners, with that, I'm going to close Committee of the Whole. Couple of reminders, Public Safety at noon back in this space. And then tonight is our Commission Night Out, again, out in the 3rd Ward. That starts at 5:30, doors open at 5. The public is welcome to come early and grab a bite to eat and get information from City staff. City staff will have a number of tables there with a lot of different topics. We'll start the meeting, similar to what we did in the 1st Ward, we'll start the meeting at 5:30. I'll open it up. We'll have a very brief presentation. We will break into small group discussions. We'll come back together at 7 for our formal business meeting, and then we'll close after that. So I look forward to seeing you all there and to be out in our 3rd Ward. Hopefully we'll have lots of folks join us tonight, just like we did in the 1st Ward. And with that, we'll see you later this afternoon and evening.